Hello, everyone. I'm having camera troubles. I have no idea why. I used this just a couple of days ago and it worked perfectly, but tonight it's not working. So sadly, you won't be able to see my new haircut until next week. Well, lucky I've shown you there's a slide with my new haircut. It's pretty dramatic and it is one of the risks when you go away and you've had the same hairdresser for over 20 years who you trust implicitly, and then you come overseas and you have to trust that someone who uses the products that you use is going to do the same quality. Difficult when you can't speak the same language and you're using Google Translate. However, I always believe that it's going to grow back. So that's my goal. Before I get back and see my wonderful hairdresser, Ciao, I'm hoping my hair grows back. Anyway, welcome to week 12. I can't believe it. That's 3 months. Um, this week has been a very hot week, averaging temperatures 35 to 37. I'm up in the mountains. You can see some of the mountains on the screen. We're not quite that high. That I believe is called the Grand Sasso. That's the biggest mountain around. But we hired a car, and Lisa and I made some journeys up into some villages. I'm not going to show you them all because there was so much happening this week, and next week there won't be. So I've saved two of them up, and I'll show you them next week. Hopefully I'll get my camera working. And because one of the main things that happened this week was this amazing festival in Popoli. So I'll get started into that after I tell you about my reflections. So it takes me a little while to get to the heart of what these are, but this week, driving up the mountains and being at heights and things that I don't love, I just realized that you can make risks feel less risky if you do the research into the situation so you're feeling confident about it. And if you're in situations where things are happening and you may not be enjoying them, or they may be getting you down, or whatever it might be, you can change them. You've got the power to change things. And that could be small things or big things. So that happened a few times this week where I guess you can have plans and think you're going one direction, and then if the temperature's too hot, or for me, accommodation has been really expensive over here, and so I changed plans just today to take up another opportunity provided by my beautiful friends Michelle and Renee. So sometimes things that feel bad can be blessings in disguise. Sometimes things that you think are the worst things ever that can happen can actually be a blessing. So I'm going to get started and I'll show you some of the photos. Now, they had the most incredible festival this week in Popoli. And we're so lucky, as I said, to be here at a time. August is sort of like the month, I think, for the whole country to have celebrations because it's the middle of summer. I guess it's August heading towards, for them, it's heading towards their autumn. So summer should be starting to cool down, but it's not. And so the historical group in Popoli put on this, I'm going to say they call it a entertainment and like paleo. I don't understand. I think that might mean just culturally historical, like historical event. And it's about a competition that happens between the districts in Popoli. And I'm assuming this has been happening for hundreds of years. So Popoli is actually quite a big city and divided into, I think, four regions. Like the city itself has four what we might call suburbs. And so they dress up and I don't know why that is my first. Something happens when I present my things, because this is definitely not the first slide I was going to show you. I'm sure this makes itself up every week. It does things just to throw me. The event ran from the I guess mid-afternoon all the way through till almost midnight. And this is actually the last things that were happening. I went home. I don't like fireworks. I like watching them, but from a distance. But the noise that they make actually hurts my ears. You know, I'm a bit precious. And so these are actually Lisa's photos, because she stayed till the death. She loves staying out of a night and watching things, whereas I'd prefer to go home and tuck up in bed with a cup of tea. And so this was just some of the things that they do just in their plaza. So the thing that kept hitting me was this would not be happening in Australia. The fireworks are going above the heads of the people. The performers are using fire. When the people you can see are just sitting beside them. The smoke and the fumes of the sulfur that they were using to make these bangs go. And one of the things that I think hopefully will come up, oh, here's some more fire, is these guns. They had, so it was set, you know, way back in, I guess, medieval times, most of this. You know, they had sword fighting. So the men on the right are fighting with swords ablaze with fire. So they lit them with, I think, something like metho on them. The square in the middle is actually a metho. They had squeeze bottles filled with metho, and they went around and made a square on the ground to light it, and then do lots of things in amongst that. And we're sitting, you know, where you can see, I'm sitting right beside it. The one on the left are actually metal crossbows. And I think I put in my WhatsApp group where they're shooting at a board that's just across the other side of the plaza, and they had to try and shoot a target. And those from each of the districts chose their best archers, and they tried to get as close as possible to the center of the target. Now, I'm particularly fond of this one because in this one there are two women choosing to fire their weapons. And these are really heavy wooden bows. They're not just like the little flimsy crossbows you see that, you know, whatever his name was that shot the apple off the top of the head. These are huge, like quite, you know, quite bulky, with these metal short arrows that they're shooting. And it went on for quite a while. And then the winner, you know, managed to get, I think they, you know, obviously back in the day it was some prestigious thing that they won. But what happened, the festival started in, like I said, in the afternoon, and we live on one of the main streets. Well, we live here, don't I? Hey, Michelle, I'm just moving in now. The street that I'm staying on is one of the main two cross streets that runs across the mountain. And they walked down one street and back the other, playing these trumpets and these drums that just went on for at least an hour, and it was boiling hot, and they're dressed up in these heavy velvet sort of outfits. The one with the blue and white is the district called Santa Ana, I believe. Sorry if it's wrong. But they were the flashiest. I don't know what they did, but they had the biggest drum group. They had the trumpets blaring. And in the middle are a bunch of men and women, and actually mostly women, who fired these very old-fashioned guns into the air. And they sounded like cannons. Because this piazza is surrounded by buildings, when they fired the guns, they nearly blew your eardrums out. I would have to hope that these people firing these guns were wearing ear protection, like earbuds, because it was so loud, I had to put my fingers in my ears. so loud. And even the drums went on and on and on and didn't stop. And so if you were playing the drums, you'd be deaf by the end of the afternoon. I literally was getting a headache. I couldn't tell whether the headache was from the sulfur, from what they were setting off to make all this smoke appear in these performances, but it certainly was outside of what we would call workplace health and safety rules in Australia. Um, there's a lady in this plastic ball dancing. She, they changed the color. It looked like I didn't actually watch either of these events, but from Lisa's videos, it looked a lot like a Disney movie, with one of the good witches floating around in this ball. And then on the right are these stilt dancers, and they were incredible because, as you saw, some of them were dancing with fire in that first shot. So not only are they balancing on the stilts, and then they've got this fabric that they're waving around and dancing with, they're also setting themselves on fire. So it was one of the most amazing events I think I've ever seen. Certainly colourful, certainly noisy, and it was just a beautiful sight to see all of the families and different generations getting out and enjoying themselves together, and went on for hours. And every night this week and every day this week, there's been something on in town. Tonight, there's a food festival. There was a car rally come through and stop in town. There's been jazz bands. And I know next week they're actually setting up for some children's events. So I'm looking forward to seeing those as well. So really good time to come to Italy in August to see, I think many, many districts and regions have, events on because it's nice weather. So we hired a car, and the next day after the festival, we headed off, and this is called Ortona. Ortona is a very big city on the coast, just a little bit south of Pescara. And we were looking for somewhere to swim. That was really ultimately our goal. And so Elisa found a beach and we headed off down there. And now our beach was further south than Ortona, so we went for a swim. I think we only paid like a dollar, €1.60 or maybe €2 for or like we spent 3 hours there. So that's really cheap. But to offset that, you have to pay for your umbrella and 2 deck chairs. So we paid €20 for an umbrella and 2 deck chairs. But because it was like 36 degrees, you could not even walk on the sand. It was so hot. And so where we parked and jumped out, there was a cafe and a change rooms, which is really helpful. And the other fascinating thing was when we come out and we went to leave, I noticed an Australian flag. So on the flagpole in front of this cafe was an Australian flag. No, random, no other flags anywhere, but just an Australian flag. So we thought, well, we didn't note that, but this was just one of those coincidences that happen, and we were meant to be in that spot. So after we had a lovely swim and got cool, we went for a drive, and we went up into Ortona, which is up on a headland. And as you know, many Italian villages and cities and things are built on a rocky outcrop or a mountain or whatever, for back in the day for the historical reasons. And this is a port city. But the old town is right up on the mountain, up on the sort of cliff face, really. And on the cliff face was this Aragonese castle. So all around the world, there are these well, not in Australia, obviously, but I know when I went to Alexandria in Egypt, they had an Aragonese castle like this on the ocean front. And here is another one in Ortona. This one's just being renovated. You can see the difference. It's quite inside. There's nothing, like there wasn't really anything to see. So I haven't got many photos, but where it's positioned again, the view from that arch window at the top was so pretty. And the only breaths of fresh air were coming in through that window. Inside the castle area itself was like an oven. I had to get out of there. I was feeling sick because it was so hot. So there aren't many, I haven't got many photos of Ortona, but one of the things that I've noticed and we talked about a lot was the different um, the different rocks that are used and found everywhere. And obviously, again, the landforms here are not necessarily volcanic. Now, I'm assuming, and I did do geography at school for a little while and at university for a little while, that this looks like that it's from the bottom of the sea and that the rocks have been forced up through movements and things in the plates. And so some of the surfaces of these walls and castles and things are just incredible because it looks like they're from the bottom of the ocean. So I had to take those photos to show you. Then when we started driving and we were looking for something to eat because finding food at different times of the day in Italy is actually a mission because many shops shut in the heat of the day, and the heat of the day is probably from about 1 o'clock to at least 5:30, 6 o'clock. And so we were like, and me especially, I was starving. We didn't have lunch. We just had a drink, and drinking is what is keeping me going. So we went for a drive to try and find something, and we picked this town called San Vito, and I'm going to say Chietino. So it looks like Chieti, but it's a small Chieti, and the city Chieti is a large city. But this was a tiny little town right up on the top of another cliff, just down from Ortona. And when you wind your way up into the town, you can tell how proud people are of their communities by how they decorate them. And we sort of fell in love with this little town because firstly, we could find a park easily. Secondly, most of the houses in this Centro Storico, so the center of the village, the old village, were done up like this and being done up. Many of, and again, as you probably know, tourists are now buying up places in Italy and doing them up. And I think it's actually being embraced by many Italian communities because it brings money to their town and they can, it becomes more prosperous. And so I think they're doing things like if you see Lisa sitting underneath the heart that was on the pole, and for me, my town, my city of Lismore has come to the heart as our motto for our trying to rejuvenate the center of our city because of the floods. And here up in their village, they've used that for a photo opportunity because the building's beautiful. You've got the beautiful view down to the ocean behind you. And then they've got the bright colors of the heart and the yellow chair. So they just take pride in these little things, which to me show a community spirit. Now, I know Lauren's going to say to me, Susie, you're showing doors. And I'm showing doors because they were so beautiful. Most of these were actually in this town, but I've actually just grabbed my photos, shots of all the doors. The one in the middle has the tabacci. I'm going to say they're called a tabacci. No, it's something like that. Is the fishing. It's a fishing. It used to be where they actually caught fish off nets hanging off the side, tabach. Oh, I can't think of how to pronounce it. I think it's called trabachi or something like that. And some of them are now being made into restaurants because they're quite unique to this coastline. And so the men, instead of going out onto the water, would build these and just fish from the nets hanging off those what look like big giant fishing lines hanging off the sides. And now it's become known as the Trabachi Coast line. So that is around where I'm at. And it also had Rafa on the door, which I thought reminded me of Rafa Nadal, the tennis player. And I've just watched his story about him retiring, which was a bit of a interesting story to watch. So doors and door knockers became again a part of my journey, and old and new. This is when we were walking through the towns, one thing we noticed was the use of shade, and how this off the side of the cliff going down to the water, you can sort of just see the water on the left-hand side through the trees. They had built this cute little cafe, and it had just quirky furniture and colorful lights and umbrellas, and they played music apparently down there as well. And just literally on the edge of the cliff down to the water. And then on the right-hand side, you can see, because the sun was so hot on the other side of the building, this alleyway was protected most of the day, I would assume, because of how high the buildings are and how close they are together, that there was just plants put out so that they could survive the terrible, terrible temperature we're getting at the moment. So just some nice shots. So here are some knockers. I'm amazed at, again, these tiny things that people do to make their houses look either more authentic or just different from their neighbours. Whereas we tend to have houses that all look very similar. Again, it reminds me it's okay to be unique. It's okay to do things different. If you feel like you want to put a dragon on your door, or have like Thing, is that what he's called? Out of the Addams Family as your door knocker, go for it, whatever you want to do. I found some flowers. They're getting very wilted. You can see the beautiful petunias. I would say it's one of the most common flowers now that the roses are dying off here, all around. There are baskets and baskets full of petunias, and just all different vibrant colors. And so for what would be really quite an ordinary plant, planted en masse, they just look so beautiful. And I managed to find this lovely rose bush just beside this doorway. But again, it's been so hot, even the roses are dying. That's saying something. What would be a video in Italy without churches? Churches that are all similar in some ways, but still all different. So these are two of the large churches. So again, I'm just going to call them a church. I don't know if they've got a Duomo, if that means anything different, but some of the small villages have these giant churches, and from the outside, sometimes they're quite ordinary, but when you get inside, you'll find something quirky in all of them. I don't think there's a church you can go into and find something that's not different to that church or that region. And I know I showed you one in WhatsApp of the most amazing church I think I've ever been to, probably outside of the Sistine Chapel. And it's a tiny little church, an ancient church. And I'll tell you about that next week. I'm actually not going to do that this week because we went and did a walking tour. And Yvette, I'm hoping you listened to the recording that I took, and maybe you can help me translate. But I'm going to have to do some research on this church, because we sat in with a tour through it, but it was all done in Italian. So other than this lovely lady translating some of the information to me, I don't know enough about it, and I won't do it justice. So I'm going to do that next week. I'm going to do some research on it and talk about it, because it was a very unique church up in the mountains. Speaking of mountains, I took a lot of photos while Lisa was driving. I was not driving, just pointing that out to you. And so again, that's the Grand Sasso, again, I believe, in the background. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And this was what the weather's been like. Now, most of that cloud is actually from fires. Where we are is near Chieti and L'Aquila. L'Aquila is L-Aquila, and it's had many, many fires. And what I'm hoping today is Sunday here, No, it's Saturday here, Saturday night. We had the biggest storm here this afternoon, and I'm really hopeful that it helped to put out the fires because they've been breaking out all over the mountain range. Um, One of the things we did by driving inland and up the range was it got much cooler. It dropped by, I would suggest, almost 10 degrees by the time we got to the top. But it's not like when we went in Geneva and we went up, basically up one giant mountain and then you were at the top. This seems to have like different layers that are so you'll go up one lot of mountains and then there'll be a plateau and then you'll go up another lot of mountains. And so it was a very long, slow journey up the mountain range and down the mountain range. But again, very beautiful. So here is me. You're going to see my dress in many, many, many photos because it's actually quite cool and it's easy to walk around in. And it's easy to get off if we're going swimming. So I'm currently, if you're watching this video, I'm currently wearing the same dress. Thank you to the beautiful Lisa Graham who who donated that dress to me. So I'm so grateful I'm wearing them. I'm wearing my joggers everywhere, which is helping my wonky knees. But these are two other villages that we went to up the top of the range near Scano. And we went up to a lake, and I'll show you that next. But there's also another village that's called Santo Stefano di Fasano. And that's another village I'm going to talk about next week because the couple of things that really stood out, and I want to do them justice rather than rush through them. Tonight's presentation was really a lot about the Popoli event, and then I wanted to show you some of the other things we've been doing. But hence notice I'm standing on the edge of a very steep area. It wasn't a cliff. It was definitely not a cliff. It was just a steep drop. But the views were so incredible. You just had to stand there because you couldn't get enough in your photo if you stayed back up on the road. I'm having a rest on the left. I'm doing some stairs and then having a rest. That's how steep these villages were. So steep. I will show you more photos that will give it some indication. So this is Lago Scano or Scano, Lakes Scano. And we wanted to find somewhere to swim that was freshwater, just a bit like Lake Geneva. And so we headed up to Scano, which it definitely took at least an hour because the road was so windy going up that you couldn't go much more than 30 kilometers an hour. Because the road was also thin, you couldn't get past anybody. But as soon as we got there, it started to come over cloudy. So on the left, you see the sun side. On the right, you'll see the clouds building up. And by the time we ended up leaving, it had had a storm, and we were really weirdly sitting there ready to go and get a ice cream, and this helicopter flew over with a bucket underneath to get water for the fires. And one of the things again that I guess it hits me that they're not they don't have the infrastructure we have in Australia to fight the fires. And I don't know what you're hearing over there, but these have been pretty bad. And for them, using this water source would have been amazing that they could just send a helicopter to pick up the water. Lisa swam in the lake. I did not. By the time we got there, it, like I said, had dropped 10 degrees, and I actually wasn't feeling like I needed to get in the water, but it was very unique. Again, everywhere you go, something's unique and special. And if you get to come to Italy and you get to this region, you have to go up there. It is a very beautiful area to see. These little villages that are perched on the cliffs all the way up, you drive through most of them. The road is just one road up and down. So by the time you find a park to take a photo, you're often you've gone through the town. And so we just stopped and took some photos. I wanted to tell you about how many of these beautiful little villages are up in this region. And again, many of them are being done up. You know, there's so many empty, falling down buildings, but there is hope that hope that the tourists will come and help renovate the little communities. So where I was standing on the side of that mountain, I was trying to take this sort of photo on the left. The valley like drops and drops and drops, and then by the time you get to the top, it's incredibly high. And I don't really think, if anyone can think of anywhere in Australia that's like this, I couldn't really. Think I've been to Mount Buller, and I thought it might be a little bit sort of like down that way. But anyway, very unique again with that giant mountain in the background. Then driving through these incredible windy roads, and I just want to show you some of the feats of construction. Italians, you know, love tunnels and concrete and building roads. So, and on the right is just the sheer cliff face of some of these that you drive through to get up into the mountains. Now, when we got back to Popoli, so this is back in Popoli, we went for a walk, and apparently the castle that you see, and when you look at the first shots, I forgot to say, in the where the festival was on, in the background you'll see the castle up on the hill. There's a light, what looks like in the sky, but it's actually up on the mountain behind Popoli, and that's this castle. And when I looked at it, I think, oh, this is sort of an Aragonese castle as well. I don't know if it is, but I think it's very old, and the dates on some of the buildings around this area date back to the 15th century, and it was a big city. Because of the trade, they used the water and the roads that go through the mountains, and because this is a very easy place to get through the mountains, Popoli became very rich because they were charging people to travel through the city. So I don't know if I've told you that already. Here's my haircut. Now, when the man pulled out the clippers, I said, you know, do it short at the back and the sides. So I tried to give him good instructions, but he said, oh, you want to undercut? And I said, oh, not really, just short. He goes, okay. And then as I watched him use these clippers and get higher and higher and higher up my head, I started to panic. And then I started to laugh. And I was literally laughing because I thought, oh my God, the only thing I could think is it's so hot that this is going to be cool. I thought it's definitely purple. He used the product that we use in Australia. He covered over my grays so I don't look like I've got any grays, which is very easily seen because you can see my scalp. And the other thing was that I'll be home in like 8 weeks, and I won't need a haircut till I get home. So that I wanted to show you as a final thing that this was what happened when you go to a different hairdresser, and they don't ask you what you want, really. They just start doing what they think you want. Not once did he check with me till he was finished that I was happy with the haircut. He didn't show me the back, so I got Lisa to take the photo of the back of the head because I always feel like I've got a man head when I've got short hair like this. So yes, I've said I do really truly look like that I'm a hiker from Germany or something now. But anyway, it'll grow back. It's not too bad. It'll get there. I'm coping with it. So I wanted to talk about my messages, and this was the photo that I put with it because I think it talks about tenacity, and it talks about, you know, coping with things, you know, when the situation is difficult. And so we had a few incidents this week where, or I personally have had a few incidents this week where you make a decision about something and you think, okay, is this, was that the best decision? I'll also tell you again, if you don't want to listen to my ramble, you can leave and I'll talk to you next week. But if you want to stay, I think you can only make a decision based on what you know. And so if you choose to make a decision like, we chose to go up into the mountains. Sometimes you choose to park somewhere and then you realize, oh my God, we've parked somewhere and we didn't pay. Just little decisions that you make. The only thing I can say about making decisions for me is that I feel really comfortable if I've done the research and made a decision and then something goes wrong, because that's out of your control. So I have to be like that. I'm actually really bad at I think I'm good at making decisions, but I'm really bad at needing to do a lot of research. And this trip is teaching me no matter how much research you do, there's still going to be things that go wrong. The next thing is about noticing yourself and how you limit yourself. I think, and traveling with Lisa, it's really good for me to look at how I do that a lot. I say, oh no, I won't go do that, or I won't fit in. That's not a place I can go to because, I won't feel comfortable being there. And I put the brakes on myself before I even go inside. And sometimes you're actually spending so much time and effort limiting yourself when you may as well just go and try it and realize that it is the feelings you're feeling that are holding you back. And if you can sit with it for a little while and work through those feelings, then you get the most out of every situation. You're getting more out of those situations. And what else did I want to say? I wanted to say that the only way to overcome doubt is, again, that doubt can hold you back, and you can do your research and find out, that you can do things, that you shouldn't limit yourself, and that you can try lots of new things. So, again, I don't like leaving my decisions to someone else, so I like to make decisions myself. Traveling with other people, you learn how to negotiate. You can put forward your ideas. We had an interesting discussion this week about flying with Air India, and Lise found a really cheap flight back to Australia on Air India, and I said, no, 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 you can't fly Air India. I just have this. I couldn't believe it that she would consider it. And it was very cheap and it was a nice flight and it went at the right times and stopped at the right places. But when we did our research and had a look at some of the feedback, it turns out that yes, Air India do have international rights to fly, but some of their reputation needs to be looked at, and whether you would consider that as an option. I wouldn't. But at least, we went and did research afterwards, and rather than just make a judgment on something based on something we'd heard, we actually read into it. So I think working on your feelings and deciding if the things that are real or things that you just think are real, things that you might have been told or things that someone said from their perspective, but you need to do your research to make your decisions. And that's sort of the biggest message that came through this week. Don't trust to make a decision that's really important to you until you've done the research to make you feel confident. That's how I feel anyway. So that's me for this week. I don't really want to keep rambling. Met wonderful new people, have had the most amazing experience with where I'm staying and the beautiful people that are letting me share their home. I'm feeling part of this community, and I'm actually going to stay another week. So for me, that is unique. I'm going to keep myself grounded for the next week, and I'm going to spend hopefully some more time at the beach. That's going to be interesting because I bet you when I start doing that, the temperature will drop. But anyway, it's going to be a fun week, and I've got some lovely videos to show you and some lovely photos about the two hilltop towns we went to. I want you to have a wonderful week, and please comment if you want to on my WhatsApp group. And if you want to, um, if you're not in my WhatsApp group and you're here, then just let me know and I can always join you in. But otherwise, keep telling me what you think. If there's something you want to see more of, please tell me because I've got hundreds of photos and I have to try and edit it down just to get this into a half an hour. So just let me know if there's anything that you'd love to see. Ciao and enjoy yourself. Stay cool. Well, no, you guys got to stay warm. Bye.